I was writing and performing commercials, seriously going back to the age of about 5 or 6, back in the good old days when you didn't even have to strap down your kids. We were just like all aimlessly in the back of the big station wagon, and I was making a commercial for something I called Troxon. It's famous in my family. And all you had to do was put your dirty dishes in a box and shake them up, kind of like a dishwasher. I know, but
amazing.
But, it was just one of those stupid little silly things that the family story, the family lore goes back. And, I growing up, though, I was like, maybe I want to be like an interior designer, not even really knowing what that meant, or an attorney. I really liked Perry Mason and then Judge Judy and, all that stuff. And when I got to college, I just started kind of going down that path. I went to Washington State University where they had a college radio station. Growing up in Seattle as I did, C89 is this, like, I think world famous high school radio station now. And I was always so jealous of that. But I went to a couple of different high schools, none of which were the school that has C89 radio on it. It's been around for a very long time, and it's produced several big name Seattle radio talents and beyond. But I grew up in Seattle and went to Washington State University. I was on KUGR, Cougar Radio, for the Washington State Cougars. And I had a noon show, and I was like throwing records out the window. I guess it was before CDs really even took off. And
but like you were throwing them out the window like frisbees?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. We would like throw out records. I don't know. I guess they weren't even really good records. And then from there, I got an internship because I was at that time, yes, I was having fun being a DJ, but I was also on like the college show called Live at 8. I was in the broadcast journalism major department and doing all the things there. Live at 8 was kind of like we like to say it was like Saturday Night Live, but we were being insulting to Saturday Night Live because it was just shenanigans and a bunch of college kids, trying to be funny.
Yeah.
But it was a great training ground, and, just going through the department and everything. I got an internship at a TV station in Bakersfield, California. And I think that was, I don't even remember. I think that was right after college. So I think I had graduated, and I started working at the same time at this big band radio station. I was the morning newsreader, and the host, BB Hamilton, he was in his 60s at the time. And so this is like 20 years ago. And he was, spinning the hits from like the 40s or whatever it was. And I was the newsreader, and, I was only there for like 6 months, and then I went back home to Seattle and ended up getting a part-time job initially with KZOK. I was just doing weekend overnights back when they had weekend overnight jocks, and really kind of my training ground. And then I found out the morning show, Robin and Maynard, who had been in the market for at least 10 years or 15 years and were just killing it. They were so fun and so funny. And they had a real show. I mean, like show open. I don't know how many people were doing that at the time. Yeah. And Robin was really the lead on that show. And I didn't fully appreciate what that meant. A woman hosting a rock show in, what is essentially a major market, or, a very competitive radio market, if nothing else. I think Seattle still has so many incredible morning shows, let alone, midday afternoon talent. I mean, Delilah got her start there, and she's still in the area, doing her thing. And it was just a great training ground. And ultimately the opportunity came up. I don't even remember what station it was, but they flipped to KISS 106.1. And it was CBS radio at the time. And I was the first midday jock there at KISS, which still kind of blows my mind. Now it's iHeart. That continued for a little while until the morning show at KISS. Our program director was Mike Preston. He's been a PLJ. He's been all over the country. Right now he's he's in Texas working for Cumulus and a couple of country stations down there. But he's been in DC, New York, Seattle, San Francisco, I believe. I mean, he's all over the place. And he was my boss, and the morning show was terminated. And then the afternoon show, he left, I think initially to go to maybe Philly, and then backtracked and went to San Francisco. And so it was just me. And he had me filling in doing mornings But then when the afternoon guy quit, I was like, okay, I know I'm going to be here for a long time, you know, until they can find somebody for mornings and afternoons. And that, I don't know, there was sort of a kerfuffle there. I learned a few things about radio, and, you know, it took me 10 months to find another gig. But when I did, it was in Florida, you know, all the way across the country.
Wow.
In Florida at the Point, which is now Hot 1015. You know, I was there for like 9.5 years, and it was great. And then I wasn't there because they flipped the format. But 6 months later, I moved on to iHeart and WFLA, which is the conservative news talk station there. And at the time, I was like, you know, I have a broadcast journalism degree. You know, I could do this. Maybe this is the right time and a good move to make. And initially, it was great and fun when the show was about the city, the Bay Area, Tampa Bay area. And then it just turned into something else. It got ugly, you know, and that was a hard time in my career. And they moved me up the hall to Mix 100.7, which was another good move for me as far as I got away from a hostile situation. But, you know, I was alone doing mornings again. And then I was there and then I wasn't. They replaced me with a syndicated show, and that didn't do well because in a lot of markets, syndicated shows just don't do that well, but they don't care because they don't have to pay a body and you know, pay for health insurance and manage an extra human being and whatever. And they just, whatever. So from there, I was unemployed or self-employed, as I like to say, for 2 years and 7 months, I think it was, up until going to these conferences. I really I didn't know what it could be. You know, I didn't know what was out there, what other people were doing, how the business really worked. And, you know, that I could sort of not write my own ticket, but sort of be in charge of my own destiny, if you will. I mean, that sounds a little hoity-toity, but really you do have a little bit more control, I think, than they want you to believe. You really have to know what you're talking about. Otherwise, you're just going to get taken advantage of.
Yes.
I mean, one of the first endorsements I did when I was at CBS Radio, and I feel like, you know, they don't exist anymore. Statute of limitations has run out.
Yeah.
You know, I was asked, hey, will you, and again, not only that, but when I did an endorsement for, I think it was like the Bon Marché. And instead of paying me, I was like, yeah, that's fine. I'll take a bunch of workout clothes. And I got like all the stuff that was basically worthless. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I mean, I wore it and I was fine with it at the time, but we're all here to make money, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, and you have to remember that about your employer too. I mean, they're there to make money too. And so the more money that you can bring in with endorsements, even going out and getting them yourself, you know, they're going to be a lot happier with you. People that want to be mad about like how much money they're making, it's because you didn't know how to negotiate, you know, and you really have to bring some receipts, you know, here you have to demonstrate how you're making the company money. You know, nobody's just going to go like, yeah, I feel like you deserve a raise. Like, no, hate the player, hate the game. You know, the choice is yours, I guess.
You said that was like around 2011. Was boot camp the first networking event you went to, or was it one of these other conferences?
I went to the Talkers boot camp, actually, because I was in news talk radio. So we went to New York City and in the financial district. And I stayed at I don't even remember what hotel it was, but I remember when I woke up in the morning and opened the blinds, I was like, oh my gosh, I was right above ground zero.
Oh, wow.
And it was so moving. It was so incredible. It was such an incredible experience. And there weren't that many women there. I mean, you want to talk about representation in radio in general? Try news talk. I wouldn't even say I would never go back to news talk. To me, like the one-sided partisan bashing is just not interesting.
Oh, right.
I'm so over it. You know what I mean? It was interesting to me when it was more like a news magazine show, you know, where you had people from all walks of life and all over your community on, you know, talking about all sides of every issue and things that actually affected people in your community. But it's just become this runaway train where everyone is just, you know, pile on negativity. And I had enough of it, you know. But yeah, so that was the very first one that I went to. And then I don't remember when my first boot camp was the morning show boot camp, but it was probably either the next year or, I just don't remember if I was employed or not. I probably wasn't actually when I went to my first boot camp, but I've been to several of them. And then, you know, I I may or may not have snuck into the radio show, the NAB radio show when it was in Orlando, because I was like, well, I'm in Tampa. I can just go over there and go back and just, shake hands, meet people and make friends. And I'm still looking for a gig. And I think it was there that I did. I stood up and asked a question. And as I was getting my water bottle filled outside the auditorium, Mike McVeigh came out and he's like, Corey, what are you up to these days? And it's like, well, Mike, I'm still looking for a gig. And he's like, well, we've got over 400 radio stations at Cumulus. And sure enough, on my drive out of Orlando, my friend Brian Thomas called me from Atlanta where he was. And he said, listen, we might have an opening coming up, but, would you be interested? And I was like, yeah, I had never considered Atlanta, but they flew me in and, got the job. But, that went sideways kind of really quickly too. My boss was fired early on, a month after I started. Then Mike McVeigh left. And then my partner was terminated like 6 months into my morning stint there. And they moved me to middays. And I was there until the day after the presidential election. I was in my apartment where I was living and working. We were all barely showering. I had started doing my cocktail hours and my happy hours and calling everybody that I'd ever met in TV or media, or just working every angle, trying to get guests on my show. Again, it was nothing I was paid for, but I was just doing it because I needed an outlet. That helped get a little attention though my way. And one of the things I was doing was attending Tracy Johnson's online seminars about, zhuzhing your resume or just being a better presenter on air, just all these different things. And one of the things I did was zhuzh my resume. And he had something, I don't know if he's still doing it, but he had like his own talent pool where he was having people upload their resumes and all this other stuff. And he works with many clients. And I know, listen, all these consultants, they lost a lot of their clients too, like 80 to 90% of their clients during the pandemic. And so they were doing various things too, or at least Tracy was. He is the one that initially pitched my name to Local Media San Diego. That's the name of my company. They own 4 radio stations and put on really big events. And that is the core nature of the business. And it's co-owned by Greg Wolfson and Norm McKee, both radio guys who decided to go into business together and bought these 4 radio stations. And my radio station is the newest brand to the family. Again, I'm not super good at the business side of all of this, especially like the finance side, but they acquired a frequency, which is a legendary frequency in the market, changed the call letters and created this station, but they were about to hire DJs after they put it on, but then the pandemic shut down the whole country. And so they went 8 to 10 months without a DJ on the station. Oh. And then the day after the election, Garrett Michaels, who is a legendary alt programmer, he's worked with, Scott Shannon in New York and Minneapolis and Seattle a couple of times, and now San Diego a couple of times. And he's like, hey, it's Garrett Michaels. And I was like, hi. And it had been so long since we worked for the same company that, frankly, I've forgotten that we had worked for the same company. He's like, yeah, it's been a really long time since we've seen each other. And I'm thinking, Garrett, we don't know each other. We've never met, but we had.
Oh, no.
I just, short-term memory loss, long-term memory loss.
Yeah.
And he said, well, listen, we have this station. We don't have any jocks on the station. We just launched back in, I think it was April. And he said, but we're ready. We're ready to do it. And wanted to see if maybe we could get you out here to San Diego, in a couple of weeks. And so just one thing led to another. I flew out. I met Greg, had dinner with Greg and Garrett. And the day after Thanksgiving, they offered me the job and heads were spinning, including mine. They have been amazing. It's been like the thing you wish for, the career opportunity you wish for, because as I just said to them, I just passed my 1-year anniversary here. I just said, I know that all things are possible from wherever now. I mean, if I ever wanted to do a syndicated show, or I can do TV from where I am now, thanks to the pandemic, because again, what we were talking about earlier, HSN, who I had started working with, where they're based out of in St. Pete, Florida, when I was living there, they found that their audience really liked to see into their guest hosts' homes, I mean, it's the
Yeah.
voyeur in all of us. I think it's why we like radio too,
Yeah.
or we feel like we are having a conversation with somebody that we are getting to know. I also love what we're doing, and I just would encourage people to not, because I think a lot of times we get so caught up, and I don't know where everyone's at with this before the pandemic, and the Jacobs Media Studies, and we learned this at the last morning show boot camp, that market size it's kind of trivial anymore. I think for a long time, a lot of us were like, I want to get to market number one, but it's like, for who cares? I mean, what is really important, and I have friends that have been in the top markets and they've been up for all sorts of awards or maybe even won some. They just want quality of life at this point.
Yes.
They don't even really care about how much money the paycheck is. They just want to be able to work in a job they love and have a decent life, and maybe save a little bit of money. But I get it. People that are renegotiating their contracts again, they feel poor, and I get it, because it's not easy, but you just have to diversify and create a little side hustle for yourself. Even your social media, there's plenty of companies out there that need somebody that knows what they're doing. I remember applying for one company that was based out of St. Pete. I can't remember what I want to say it's called like the Penny Saver or something like that. But it's a largely millennial brand. And I'm lying if I say I'm a millennial. I'm not even an elder millennial. I'm solidly Generation X. But it's your job to convince them that you're the solution to their problem, right? I mean, they may be pigeonholed and think, oh, she doesn't know what she's talking about or whatever. But, you just have to figure out a way, again, to show them that you're the answer to their problem. Thank you, George Clooney, for that quote. And just do everything that you can to support your passions.
And you're big on the networking thing in general. Would you say, at least that I've seen, because of like, you should go to would you say that there's been a lot of movement and success because of that, being able to just getting out there and being in front of people?
Yeah. I mean, and some of it has come by way of just letting people know what you're doing. I have a friend that I met again through Brian Thomas. He used to be in radio, but then he went to work for Disney. Then he went to work in marketing for the Tampa Bay Rays. From there, he went to USF in Florida. And then he went to the Arizona Coyotes, the NHL team. And now he's with the Ottawa Senators. And he's given me a bunch of different voice work, because at the time that I met him, I think he was self-employed too and trying to create his generate his own business. But make friends in this business, whatever it is that you're doing, whether it's social media, television, and voiceover. I mean, and I've done it all. I mean, for instance, I just, because I've got this group of women. It's a very informal group. It's just women. It was a radio sisterhood that Dana DiDonato, I have trouble saying her name, who lives in San Diego now, but is out of radio, and she's doing charity work. And the hashtag is We See You San Diego. And they're providing a free warm meal for the San Diego homeless once a week, every week. I don't know what, I wish that I could connect with her again, but at boot camp several years ago, when she moderated the women's panel, she created this radio sisterhood. And yes, Megan Taylor has the radio, Women in Radio, which is phenomenal. She's done an amazing job with that. And again, this is just another little group of women in radio. I don't make any money from it. Yeah. I don't have any time to sort of brand it. And, Meg is doing such a great job with Women in Radio, but it is someplace that I can just fire off an email to a bunch of different women in radio, over 100. Thank you very much. Women in Radio, like different companies or things that I see that I'm like, okay, for anyone that's out of work or maybe looking for another gig or a different gig, this is someplace where I think your skills could be applied. But you just have to be on the lookout. And I just think that the networking part of it is indispensable when you are trying to build a career in radio, which isn't just radio anymore. And, when I was just so frustrated after 2.5 years of looking for a job, I was like, what's the problem? I've got great ratings, I'm doing this and that. And my agent at the time said, I was like, what are they looking for? Yeah. He said, they're looking for people that can get attention. And I was like, I thought about it. And finally one day I was like, oh, they're looking for people that can get attention on social media. But part of that is, like you said, the humble brag. I mean, what are they going to think of? What's your brand? What are they thinking of when your name comes up? What do you do? And when you're in the interview, I went on an interview at the station that was, I don't even remember what they called themselves. I think it was a rock station, but it's now Moving 92.5, I think. Or no, it's the country station at Hubbard in Seattle. Oh. It was the rock station. And I asked the program director, I said, well, what are you looking for? And he said, well, I want to hire a man. And I was like, but, I thought in an interview, they just needed to like you, that all your work would speak for itself. And then I remember watching this, it was kind of like a behind the actors studio with Bryan Cranston, Breaking Bad. And he said something that hit me. And he said, whether it's an audition or interview, in our case, he said, you're not there to get a job. You're there to do a job. So you better be on in that interview and entertaining them seriously, like you would on the radio, I should say, point. Or on TV or whatever. I mean, I don't know. I mean, we are all these kind of, we have a sort of a inward personality. What's that word? Not outgoing, but like reserved. Yeah. A lot of us have this reserved. You have to remember though that you probably should be on, because you are trying to convince somebody that you're the person for the job, So I don't know, have those answers ready when they hit you with all these different things. Like, I don't think you're the one. I mean, because they're going to say rude things and things that are probably illegal to your face.
Right. I know.
Well, what are you going to do? You're the one that needs a job. That I think a lot of people lose is that hunger, They just get so burned out by the corporate aspect of it. They're like, I just want to have fun. And yeah, you do. But again, you have to remember it's business. We're all here to make money. I've had that animus relationship, I suppose you would call it, or, with sales or whatever. You're just like, oh God, they're at me again. Yeah. But I think it's just better if you learn to accept that, again, we're all trying to make money. And, the better relationship you can have with sales or help them out in any way, everybody wins. It really is important to network and just make your circle bigger, not smaller, as our industry gets smaller and smaller. Just meet as many people as you can and just learn from them too. Again, don't just take from them, like learn from them.
It's interesting how that's kind of changing. Like, you obviously still have competition, but I feel like now, because of radio, like everything else is the competition. So now people within the radio industry are getting hopefully a little closer, because it's like, God, we're competing against everything else, I know a lot of companies, especially like Town Square right now, everybody is pushing you to do digital. Well, it helped me learn how to update my own website when the time came, or, do your own thing or do it for somebody else, so it's just another skill. Yes, you're being forced to do it and you don't love it, but it's part of the game at this point. And, even part of the reason why I started doing these, because when I was back in the apartment in Atlanta, I wasn't doing live radio for, approximately a year or more. Because we rebranded in the whole middle of that too. The legendary Kicks 1015 became New Country 1015. And it had been Kicks 1015 for 30 years or something like that. I mean, it was crazy, but so I hated voice tracking, but I had it down. But I started doing the live cocktail hour and the live cooking show to keep me sort of sharp doing live, whatever, TV or radio. Yes. Because you do need to be able to think on your feet and just keep talking. I mean, that was sort of the impetus for that. And the other thing it taught me was the fact that I needed that outlet, that I just decided to do that kind of on a whim. I was like, what am I going to do? I don't know. Like everybody else, because a lot of people were doing happy hours, but I think the reason why mine sort of finally caught on was because I was making the cocktails, you know what I mean? And I wasn't doing that for some of the guests that I had on, because I felt rude, like, oh, this is rude. I'm trying to interview them and make a cocktail. But then I was like, okay, getting guests is a pain in the butt. So I'll make these cocktails. And we know that, liquor sales went through the roof, during the pandemic, and everybody was home. And I was like, I've never had this cocktail. Let's make that. And let's see how we like it. And I started working my way through a lot of
prohibition cocktails. And I think that is the thing that kind of made it a little bit unique, and consistency, like we said. But really, I just, through all that, I sort of came to terms with the fact of, yeah, I'm an entertainer. I mean, that's what I have to do. They say artists need to create art. That's I was a fine arts minor, but I haven't created anything other than like visual and audio content for a long time.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just trying to keep that forward momentum. That's all you can do. Lots of caffeine, and there are plans. And I would, like I said, I would love to do another podcast just to do it and have another outlet. But it's a commitment you have to make to yourself, if nobody else. For anybody that's unemployed, believe me, I get it. And I think there are more terminations coming here. We're all kind of like looking over our shoulder, like when, or not when,
who's next,
or not how, or like, because we just know it's coming. They need you more than you need them at that point. And that's what you want, right?
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, that's totally what you want. And, so Kat Haley, just during the pandemic, started doing these wacky, weird, things. She now, I'm sure, has more than 1 million TikTok followers too. And she told me something that I didn't even know, that once you get to 10,000 followers on TikTok, and believe me, I don't know that I would ever get there. That's when people are starting to offer you brand partnerships. And I know that you can become a creator. And she said that they were just like sending her a check for, $1,500 a month.
That's
it's like
crazy.
Are you kidding me? So, I mean, yeah, pick a platform and just go to town, because who knew? I didn't even know until like a week ago that kind of money was possible with TikTok for somebody that had as few as 10,000 followers. I'm still trying to get there on, Instagram or whatever. But
I mean, even from business standpoint, I need to get on TikTok more.
You have control, over your career. And, especially if you are essentially an early adopter. And I mean, even TikTok, you know what I mean? They're just growing like crazy. The thing about TikTok is that it blends audio or music, and video and or pictures. I mean, it's a little more multifaceted. Sometimes we love it. Sometimes we don't. It's just, I don't know, hang on, ride the wave. There's just so much happening.
Yeah.
It's mind-boggling. So
it's, I think, an exciting time for radio, for people that want, that can see really outside of it, that don't just tie themselves to their brand or to the radio brand. I think for people that can see that, they can create and do these things outside of it.
And, when I say invest in yourself too, I know that Chris Cruz has done this and I've done this, and it's helped me continue with HSN, because there were some products that I lost out on because they wanted me back in Florida before the pandemic. But once the pandemic hit, they're like, okay, well, what are we going to do? We're going to use Skype. So they're using Skype. I already had all these lights and microphones. I've got more microphones and whatever. Yes. And it's not because stuff with HSN, I was using wired little earbuds and a microphone, a lavalier. I actually have a lavalier, but because that's what it is. I have a Rode. When I was doing the cooking show, I would do that. Because I had to move around, you know what I mean? And move the camera around and all that stuff. I mean, bless your heart if you ever watch one, because it probably gave you like the Blair Witch Project, like seasickness, that I just, just dive right into whatever your passion is, even if it's a hobby or whatever, because it's a niche probably that maybe somebody's doing it. Maybe somebody without even radio or TV or on camera experience is doing, and you could do it better, or, you could be one of the top tier people for that. I mean, you just never know.
Yeah.
So, and we're not out of this thing yet. And even when we are out of it, people are so accustomed to staying home and doing things digitally now that there is going to be an opportunity for you.
Yeah. Even outside the pandemic, people just work these random shifts, so keep, like you said, just keep fucking creating.
Yeah. Amen.